Hey, it's Chaz Ross Monroe, and today I'm going to go over my HubSpot user training. And typically I do this training for people that are new to a company or just new to using HubSpot, and I keep it pretty short and sweet. I cover user preferences, then I jump into the contacts module and the companies module, and I refer them to some notes that I've put together that helps them reference key parts of the system and just help them out if they get a little lost. So I'll go ahead and run through it, and I'll show you how I do it. All right, so the first thing that I tell users is let's jump in and check your preferences out to make sure that you're set up correctly. So I share my screen, I jump into Profile and Preferences, and then we kind of go through the tabs and just make sure everything looks right. So does your first name, last name look right, phone number correct? And then also I show them how to change their default. So you do have some options here. You can set to your contacts, companies, that kind of thing. You can, and then I usually like my dashboards. I like to log in, see that. But let's say you just want to change it to something else, just make sure that you remind them to use the save button so that their changes are saved. Next, I go into email and I make sure that their email is hooked up and just make sure that everything kind of looks right. One thing that I do is I make sure that internal emails are not saved to the system for all users. So that's also something that I double check. But like I said, it might be different preferences for you. And that kind of thing. I am not a big fan of inbox automation because I don't need to see everything in people's lives. So that's why I don't turn on inbox automation, but some people prefer it. So for calling, again, just make sure that you have the right phone number set up, or if you do call forwarding, just a good thing to make sure that your users are set up, especially if you're onboarding an SDR or an AE. You want to make sure that this information is set up correctly as well as their hours. Calendar, making sure that their calendar is integrated so that way when you set up meetings and that kind of thing, those are all set up. And then tasks, these are of course personal preferences, so I just show people how to do that. And then last but not least, security is always important. So, I just kind of run through some of these options. And that's what I do when it comes to the profiles and your setup. The next thing is I jump right into CRM, and then we go into contacts. And from contacts, I usually jump into a contact record and I'll show people the overall layout and, make sure that they understand, on the left-hand side, here's the key fields of data that you might need. Most importantly, that email address. And then I go through and explain, in our case, what lifecycle stages mean, and just make sure they understand that. For us, lead source is a really important field, so I just touch on that and make sure people know that they need to update that as they change and update their records. Talk about the center section of the record, which is, it's an overview of the contact and the relationship that you've had thus far, and as well as the activities tab, because some people forget that you that you can switch and you can toggle from back and forth. The other thing I make sure is that people have the relevant activity turned on, because you'll be surprised how many people will say, well, I didn't see that email from that person, or I didn't see that update or that task update. And so just make sure that they have everything for your team, make sure that everything is on, so that way they always see all of the activity. Next, I show them the associations over here that they can associate records to and add. So like if they have a deal, they can go ahead and add that here. How the company, based on the email domain, is automatically assigned. And then we kind of walk through and just show them other key areas. For us, we've got some custom modules, so we go into those a little bit. But that's kind of stage one. The next thing that I like to show people when it comes to onboarding is how you can create a list view based on a list. So you can create a customized view based on a list. So we'll go in here to list membership, and then I will show them how they can select a list, and then they can customize their view based on that list. So that's a really helpful thing to let people know. In our case, you can export from here. I also make sure that people know that they can go in here and they can edit the columns, so they can change which columns appear, they can reorder these. So I definitely touch on that during my onboarding. And then last but not least, we go into the company record. And in the company record, again, I'm going to jump into a company record, give them the lay of the land, kind of talk through each of the fields. Again, I'm going to talk about key fields that I really think are important. So the company domain name is important. So is the company type in our case, and then always making sure that there's a company owner. So in our case, our company owner rolls down to the contacts so that the contacts and the company have the same owner. Again, I'll kind of go in here to the overview, activities. And again, with activities, I'll make sure that when it comes to their filter activity, everything that they need to see is checked so that they see everything that goes on with that record. And then I again move over to the right side, make sure that they know that they can associate contacts, other companies. Oh, and the important thing that I touch on here as well is that you can associate a child company here as well. So I make sure that people know that you can do that, which is great for good data hygiene. And then also that they can add deals here, and they can see again, we have some custom modules that we've added in and some other integrations. So just give them the lay of the land. And then again, I love the HubSpot, the HubSpot grids or the views, because you can go in here and you can, edit records, you can, make changes on the fly. And a lot of users appreciate that feature, especially if they're new to the system, that they can just go in here and make changes and they don't have to click into each record in order to make those changes. I also make sure that they're comfortable with the kinds of things that you can filter on. And then from here too, I walk through how you can clone a view, you can save a view, so that way people can customize and save their own views. Typically at this point in the orientation, I will ask them to open their, to share their screen with me. And then I make sure that they can, add columns and save views and create their own view from there. And that tends to help them out to just get started. And like I said, this is this onboarding usually takes 30 minutes. I usually don't do any more than that. And then I refer them to the notes that I'll share with you, because I've found that if I try to go too deep, too quickly, people get more intimidated of the system and they don't really want to jump in and start trying to attack it. So I found that if I can keep it short and sweet, just to a few key points, they're pretty good. And then I set a follow-up session for the week after. So just to recap, if you're the admin for your CRM or for HubSpot, make sure when you're onboarding new folks that you keep it short and sweet. Just focus on like 3 key areas. That's why I focus on profile and preferences, contacts, and companies for an initial onboarding session, so that people don't get overwhelmed by everything that the system can do. So if you do that, I think you're going to be in good shape to onboard new users to the system.